Okay, so you've seen how tokenization works. One of the next steps that you typically apply is sentence splitting, which is also known as sentence segmentation. So the problem here is finding out where one sentence starts and ends. Again, you might think, well, that's easy. A sentence ends when there is a period. And then you think again and think, okay, there can also be an exclamation mark or a question mark, but what's the problem? Well, again, when you process documents, you'll find out not every time you find a period, the sentence is actually ending. Now you can have a period after an abbreviation. You can have a period inside a number and a couple of other cases. So now what do you do? Well, one strategy could be to find common abbreviations. And you say, okay, if I now find US, then the period here and here, they are not ending the sentence. But now what happens when you have something like this? The sentence ends with an abbreviation. You don't have two periods here, like a programmer would think. You have the first period from the abbreviation, and then a second period showing you that the sentence ends. No, that's not how it works. You just have one. And now the period is part of the abbreviation and indicates an end of sentence. So you can see, again, in natural language documents, something that looks simple at first glance is actually really tricky. And it gets even worse because you can have nested sentences. I'll show an example in a minute, but something like inside quotes, for example. And again, getting this right is important because later processing steps build on the sentences that you detected. For example, this part of speech tagging is typically analyzing the word probability inside a sentence. That you have certain words, subject, verb, object, and so on, is something you compute over the boundary of one sentence. When the sentence boundary is wrong, then you get odd results because then you might have the subject from the next sentence with the first one and everything gets messed up. And then not just part of speech tagging, but also later steps like parsing work on sentences. And again, if the sentences are wrong, all your later steps are producing wrong results. So you can see some of the problems discussed here, and I also put you a few examples that come from this website to see what difficult cases are for sentence splitting. So again, abbreviations are a common problem. Here, the sentence doesn't end just because there is US. Similar here, the sentence doesn't end. And again, a few more cases in there. Then, if you look at the next one, I went to GTU. Then you see that this is probably two sentences. Again, it's an abbreviation, and you might think it's not being split, but in this case, it probably is. And the third example, you see what I meant with nested sentences. So inside the quote, you have a sentence, and the whole thing itself is also a sentence. So if you want to do it completely right, you have to be able to deal with nested sentence boundaries. And you can have multiple sentences nested inside another sentences, like in the example here. So again, sentence splitting in practice on real-world documents is a lot trickier than what you might think initially. Again, you can try this out, what Spacey is doing online on the next task on the worksheet, and then I'll see you back for the next part of processing.